I said a while ago when T.I.'s son King was getting a lot of flack and a lot of heat in the media that to me he just looked like a young kid that wanted to prove to his father that he was a man too.
Think I ain't spoke to my son? Think I ain't told my son, his mama, and his grandmamas, his going to prison?
It all came crashing down for King Harris when that wild gas station stunt blew up his whole world. Cops caught him reckless driving, a gun stuffed in his waistband, and the car reeking of weed so strong it could choke the air. In just one night, the Harris dynasty flipped upside down. And just when people thought T.I. and Tiny were locked in as Atlanta's power couple, Tiny hit with the ultimate bomb. Divorce papers served right after King's arrest. But that wasn't even the ugliest part. T.I. didn't just sit back quietly, he didn't fight for the marriage, and he didn't defend King either. He straight up disowned his own son in public. Fans couldn't believe it. T.I. telling the world he was done with King after that arrest. Imagine the chaos inside the Harris mansion. Tiny pointing the blame at Tip, Tip blasting King, and King spiraling deeper into the mess, stuck in the middle like a pawn in a family war. Some fans say King threw away his parents' legacy just to chase a fake gangster dream, while others argue T.I. and Tiny handed him the blueprint for disaster years ago. The truth? This wasn't some random meltdown, it was a ticking time bomb. Cracks in the marriage, cracks in the parenting, and finally, everything shattered.
Hitting me and getting in my comments, telling me what to tell King, okay? I know my son. Think I ain't spoke to my son? Think I ain't told my son, his mama, and his grandmamas, his going to prison. If you got to keep that up, his going to prison. Ain't no way around it. Ain't nothing I'm gonna be able to do about it. Can't nobody stop it but him. You know what I mean? I've already had that conversation. I've already made my peace with it. Cause I know that energy. I was that energy. I know exactly how it's gonna turn out.
That infamous October 2024 night was the last straw. King peeled out of that gas station like he was starring in Fast and Furious, nearly smashing into a cop car before getting stopped on the spot. As soon as officers rolled up, the smell of loud hit them hard, and then they saw the strap tucked in his waistband. Game over. King tried to act cool, but it was already too late. The cops grabbed the gun, slapped cuffs on him, and when they ran his name, boom. His whole history spilled out. A warrant from 2022, speeding DUI, suspended license, you name it, he had it. If he just kept it low-key that night, maybe he could have slid by. Instead, his past came back swinging like a hammer. When the arrest footage leaked, social media turned savage. The internet roasted him nonstop. People calling him a trust fund prison punk and clowning him for flexing like he was hood when he grew up pampered with everything. They dragged him from every angle, no mercy, but one thing stood out from that viral clip. King didn't look tough, he looked shook. Not that cocky kid we're used to seeing flex on Instagram. King's whole vibe flipped in that moment. You could see it in his face clear as day. He knew he had messed up big time, and yet, shockingly, he stayed calm. Even the cops wrote it down in their report. It was the most composed people had ever seen him. But calm or not, it didn't save him. He still landed behind bars. First locked in at DeKalb County, then transferred over to Pickens County once that old warrant finally got recalled. But here's where it gets messy. This wasn't just about King anymore. His arrest ripped open the real scandal, and the blast hit straight at his parents' marriage. Tiny wasted no time. She filed for divorce almost instantly, and she wasn't sugarcoating a single thing in those court docs. She even listed King's downward spiral as one of her reasons for walking away from Tip for good. What shook people even more? I didn't fight it. No counter arguments, no public statements, no defending King, nothing. He basically shrugged and said he did what he could as a father, and King made his own bed. Cold words, but at the same time, he wasn't wrong. Back in 2022, when King first started wilding out online, Tip went public, begging him to chill out. He literally warned everyone, including Tiny and King's grandmother, that the path King was on only led to jail. He said it clear, but nobody stepped in heavy enough to stop it. Tiny wasn't having that excuse though. She claimed Tip was never really there for King. And honestly, when you look back, it adds up. Tiny was pregnant while Tip was locked up, and by the time he got released, King was already a toddler, raised more by his grandma than his own father. That disconnect left a hole that no mansion could fill. King even told fans that despite his parents being loaded, he didn't actually grow up rich. He said the only time he got to step foot in that big family mansion was when the cameras were rolling for the reality show. Imagine that, living the life of a Harris only on TV. No wonder the kid felt cut off from the dynasty his name carried.
Stop talking to me. This ain't your restaurant. This ain't your restaurant. Everything you make, I can pull out my pocket right now. I ain't tripping on you. I ain't tripping. Get the hell out of my face. I'm not talking to you. I'm not talking to you. Who the hell is he? What's your name? My name King. You know it and your mama know it. Tell your mama Happy Mother's Day. Tell your mama Happy Mother's Day.
And the signs were there early. Remember the meltdown at Waffle House in 2022? All it took was a messed up sandwich, pickles he didn't even order, and King lost it. He screamed at employees, cursed them out, filmed the whole thing like it was some show for his fans. But instead of looking tough, he came off spoiled and entitled. The clip went viral, and fans dragged him while side-eyeing Tip, asking why he let his son run wild like that with zero consequences. That's why when Tip finally posted that video warning King that his behavior would end in jail, it felt too little, too late. By then, the damage was already done. Tiny was heated. She felt Tip should have been laying down the law years ago, but instead he let King run wild. All that bottled up tension finally exploded, and it happened right in front of the whole world. The breaking point, an Atlanta Falcons game that turned into a public family brawl. Cameras caught King arguing with Tip, claiming he wasn't raised with privilege. And Tip? He snapped back instantly, calling King a liar and saying everything was handed to him on a silver platter. Next thing you know, father and son are swinging fists in the VIP suite, yes, throwing hands in front of fans, security, and cameras. That clip went viral in minutes, racking up thousands of views, comments, and memes. Some people applauded Tip for finally checking his son, while others were shocked, saying, "Dang, he really squared up with his own kid in public." For Tiny, that scene was unforgivable. Seeing Tip humiliate King in front of the whole city, then turning around and kicking him out of the house, was the ultimate betrayal. She couldn't believe the man she stood by for decades, through cheating scandals, jail stints, and nonstop lies, was now tossing their son aside like trash. That Falcons fight wasn't just drama. It was the moment Tiny's patience snapped. From her view, this wasn't discipline. This was humiliation, shame. A toxic cycle replaying itself all over again. She had forgiven Tip for so much over the years, but now she was watching her own son walk the same dark road Tip once walked. And instead of pulling King close, guiding him, Tip distanced himself. Online, he played the wise elder role, posting like a disappointed dad handing out life lessons. But behind the scenes, he already had one foot out the door. That's why when Tiny filed for divorce, she didn't just toss out the usual irreconcilable differences excuse. Nope, she came armed with receipts. She listed King's downward spiral, Tip's cheating history, and even his violent past as reasons she was walking away for good. Tiny had finally hit her limit. On the outside, they looked like hip-hop royalty. Red carpets, reality shows, luxury cars, picture-perfect family moments. But inside their home, pure chaos. And when King spiraled, it forced Tiny to face the ugly truth. She wasn't just losing her son, she was staring at the man who helped break him. King's behavior had been loud for years, but Tip's reaction was louder. Instead of being the father King desperately needed, he chose judgment, distance, and public shame. And here's the kicker. King was becoming a mirror image of Tip's younger self. The same tough guy persona, the same run-ins with the law, the same destructive choices. Tiny saw the cycle repeating itself in real time, and it broke her. Then came the bombshell that made everything messier, the baby mama drama. Out of nowhere, Tip casually dropped on a podcast that King was about to be a dad. Just like that, he announced he was going to be a grandfather again, brushing it off like it was light news. Tiny was blindsided, not because King was expecting a child, but because Tip delivered it like it was a flex, as if the family wasn't already in shambles. To Tiny, it felt like Tip was low-key praising their son for getting a girl pregnant, even while King's legal mess was still hot in the headlines. And that wasn't just surprising, it was flat out strange. Word on the street was that King's baby mama, Big Nana, was way older than him, and people weren't holding back their side eyes. Whispers spread that maybe she was just using King for clout, maybe plotting to lock him in for a check. Folks online were saying she knew exactly what she was doing. But King, he didn't care at all. He was hyped about stepping into fatherhood. He proudly dropped the baby announcement like a trophy, posting, "Welcome King Jr., time to take over." Then he doubled down, releasing a track called Dear Son, bragging that he was ready to be a real father. For a second, it looked like maybe King was finally maturing. Fatherhood seemed to soften his hard edges. He started posting heartfelt captions, showing off baby pics, and acting like he was turning the corner. For Tiny, those moments meant everything. She had always wanted King to feel the fatherly bond she knew he missed growing up. Watching her son proudly embrace his new role gave her hope. Hope that maybe he was finally breaking the toxic cycle that haunted their family for years. But that light didn't last long. While King was putting on the proud dad face online, the reality of his mistakes kept haunting him. That arrest footage wouldn't die. It kept circulating like wildfire, reposted, replayed, and dragged all across social media. People clowned him nonstop, replaying the exact moment cops caught him with weed smoke in the car and a gun on his waistband. Every time he tried to flip the script, the internet shoved the old narrative back in his face. And Tip, he stayed silent through it all. No public support, no posts backing up his son, just radio silence. That silence made King look even more isolated, like the message was crystal clear. Tip had cut him off completely. Behind closed doors, Tiny was furious. She felt Tip had abandoned King too early, turning his back right when his son needed guidance most. What hurt her the most was watching Tip act brand new, like he didn't understand how a young man could fall off track. This was the same guy who once rapped about the trap, about running the streets, about hustling his way out the mud. But now he was treating King like a stranger, not like his own blood. For Tiny, that was betrayal at the highest level. She never expected Tip to excuse King's actions, but to throw him out, walk away, and stay completely quiet, that was cold. And truth be told, it wasn't even the first time Tip had failed as a father. Tiny had been carrying the weight for years. Back when King was a little boy, Tip was barely home, in and out of jail, chasing fame, always in the studio or out on the road. Meanwhile, Tiny was the one holding the house together, raising the kids and keeping the family from crumbling. Ti's presence came and went like the wind, never steady, never rooted, and King felt it every single time. He might have had a famous father, but he didn't feel fathered. Even in recent years, when Tip tried to step in, it came off more like lectures and judgment than love. No understanding, no real connection. That's why their bond kept shattering again and again. Nothing solid underneath, just public blow-ups and tough love with no softness behind it. Remember that music video with Boozie's son? King was out there flashing guns, showing out in front of girls. Tip confronted him, and from the outside, it looked like a real father-son moment. But for King, it felt like humiliation. Yet another time his dad blasted him in front of the world. Tiny saw it too. She didn't defend King's behavior, but she hated how Tip handled it. Public call-outs, online speeches, interviews where he acted like he had all the answers. To her, that wasn't fathering, it was flexing. Tip loved playing the role of social media dad, posting advice like he was some wise king, but at home, he wasn't there when it counted most. Tiny was exhausted, tired of carrying the family, tired of watching her son crumble while Tip kept polishing his image for the public. So when King's life finally hit rock bottom, arrests, drama, backlash, she wasn't surprised. She was heartbroken. Because for Tiny, this wasn't just about a failed marriage. She was mourning the family they promised to be, the empire they built and sold as hip-hop royalty. All smoke and mirrors. Behind closed doors, it was cracked walls and broken trust. And King? He was the product of that chaos. From baby mama drama, to flashing lights from cop cars, to the constant online roasting, he carried every wound his parents never healed. And then Tip did the unthinkable. He disowned him. That cut wasn't just for King, it was for Tiny too. She didn't just see her son spiraling, she saw a young man screaming for guidance, desperate to be accepted, begging for his father's validation. And the fact that Tip couldn't see it, couldn't step in, that was proof to Tiny that their marriage was past saving. As King stepped deeper into adulthood, the scars showed everywhere. Every reckless move, every chaotic post. It all felt like one long scream for attention, especially from the one man he could never impress. It was almost like he was chasing his father's same blueprint, gun, street cred, controversy. But while Tip once got praised and crowned King of the South for that image, King got nothing but dragged, clowned, and ridiculed. Still, through it all, one person never abandoned him: Tiny. She stood in the storm, clutching onto her son, even while the rest of their empire collapsed. The streets whispered that maybe King wasn't just acting out recklessly, maybe he was chasing respect. Respect he never felt from his father. Look at the signs, the flashy lifestyle, the wild music videos, the Waffle House meltdown, the sudden baby announcement with a woman fans barely knew. It all screamed, "I matter, I'm a man now," and that's the tragedy, because even as it dragged him into courtrooms and jail cells, King walked proud every step of the way, convinced this chaos proved he was grown. Meanwhile, the public watched it all like a soap opera, unraveling in real time. T.I., once hailed as the untouchable King of the South, was now blasted as cold, detached, and out of touch. Tiny, once the loyal ride-or-die wife, was now the one pulling the plug. But honestly, fans weren't shocked. They'd been clocking the cracks in the Harris empire for years. The TV show, the red carpet smiles, the staged Instagram moments, it all looked polished. But people knew the truth. Behind those glossy images, it was messy, toxic, and falling apart. And when King's arrest footage hit the net, Tip's silence was deafening. No long posts, no defenses, no fatherly speeches this time, just silence. And that silence, it was louder than anything he could have said. Meanwhile, Tiny was done. She wasn't going to play the ride-or-die wife anymore, not for a man who let their son crash and burn right in front of the whole world. When she handed Tip those divorce papers, it wasn't just the end of a marriage, it was a statement. "I'm not covering for you anymore." And let's be real, this wasn't the first time T's parenting had the public raising eyebrows. Remember the infamous hymen check controversy with his daughter Deja? That scandal had already sparked outrage over how he treated his kids. Now, with King spiraling out of control and getting kicked out of the house, it only piled more fuel onto a fire that had been burning for years. People started to wonder, was Tip trying so hard to separate himself from King's image because it hit too close to home? Because the truth is, Tip's own rise to fame was built on tales of the trap, run-ins with the law, and redemption arcs, but now that his own son was walking the exact same path, instead of offering a hand, he turned his back. Tiny, on the other hand, never abandoned King. She didn't excuse his reckless actions, but she understood where they came from. She saw the cracks in his childhood, the long stretches without his father, the cameras filming more than the parents raised, the housekeeper stepping in when family should have been there. To her, King wasn't just out of control, he was hurting, and that made it personal. The saddest part? For all his chaos, King had moments where you could see he wanted to grow. After his son was born in November 2024, he leaned into fatherhood hard. He posted about his baby boy, dropped that song Dear Son, and spoke like a young man ready to change. For a second, it felt like maybe he was turning the corner. But just as King tried to clean up his image, that viral arrest footage kept dragging him back. No matter how much he tried to step forward, his past refused to let him breathe. And with Tip refusing to stand in his corner, that weight hit even harder. Online, the takes kept flying. Some people claimed King was chasing his own street rep and didn't care about his dad's approval. Others argued every move he made, from the guns to the Waffle House meltdown to fatherhood, was a cry for attention from the one man he could never please. Whatever the truth is, one thing's undeniable. This whole saga turned into a masterclass in how fast fame, family, and failure can collide. And the Harris family, they didn't just implode. They did it under the brightest spotlight possible with millions watching. Now the heat is hotter than ever. Tiny's moving on, finished with the excuses and the cover-ups. King is stepping into fatherhood, trying to figure out who he is outside his parents' shadows. And Tip? He's the wild card. Will he finally speak out, take accountability, and try to rebuild what's left of his family? Or will he keep fading into the background, hoping the noise dies down while his empire burns? The ball's in Tip's court now, because let's be real, while King might be the one grabbing headlines, this story runs way deeper than one arrest or one fight in a VIP suite. This is about legacy, about the Harris family name, and whether the next generation can break the cycle or just keep spinning in the same chaos. So what's coming next? Will King truly flip the script and grow into the man he's so desperate to prove he can be? Will Tip ever admit he didn't get it right the first time? That maybe the blueprint he laid down was cracked from the start? And will Tiny finally find peace after years of betrayal, humiliation, and holding a family together on her own shoulders? One thing's certain, the Harris empire ain't shining like it used to. The red carpets are fading, the picture-perfect smiles are cracking, and the whole world is locked in, waiting to see their next move. This isn't just gossip, it's the unraveling of Atlanta's so-called royal family, and trust me, the spotlight isn't letting up anytime soon. If this breakdown had you shook, make sure you smash that subscribe button, drop a like, share it with your crew, and light up the comments with your thoughts. We've got more jaw-dropping scandals and wild breakdowns coming straight at you. Stay tuned, because with Hush Hush Fame, the drama never sleeps, and neither do we.